We can wait a few minutes. It's up to you, man.
Yeah, I'll wait.
We already doing an intro. If you feel me, okay. You already hit the 0, so don't just hold it down, okay.
Right.
What you can do is like
Yo,
you could like adjust your cue cards and shit. Come on, man. You gotta.
I'm gonna leave it at 0 for Zerosaru.
Oh, you are not about to leave it at 0.
Nah.
Okay.
Alright, I'll throw us on screen.
Oh.
Oh, now I know what I did
Yo,
wrong.
More
yo.
sub love.
I had the
Yo,
wrong.
yo.
What's going
That's
on,
good.
everybody? So, this is the official, unofficial intro to the official, unofficial episode of MageCast with Memphis. I am here with some very special friends, very special guests tonight. We've got Zerosaru, the head of Shiv Nation, as well as a great friend of mine, Tydynamite. Thank y'all so much for joining me.
I don't know.
Oh, that's our cue.
Yeah, that's your
Right.
Sorry, I was impressed by how you said Ty's name. I tend to get tongue tied on it. You said it really well, and then yeah. Hi.
Shoot, I'm glad I'm the one hosting tonight, man. Y'all.
Right.
Me and Ty were just ready. Well, we wouldn't know what we were ready for. Like,
Right.
So, as you can probably see, this was very hastily thrown together. This was kind of last minute, but I'm pretty happy to be doing this. So, it kind of worked out in happenstance. I wanted to have. Let's see, you can't hear me. I'm gonna turn myself up. I'm talking loud.
it's definitely more up on Discord.
Yo, I'm like yelling into it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, I'm good now. Sweet. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do I need to do that intro again? Fuck, don't tell me that. Don't tell me I gotta do it all again.
She gotta have a rewind
Right.
button. Just
Kind of
it's the
quiet.
replay of the shit.
How do I...
Yeah.
Let's
Can
pull
man
up
do
on
one
Twitch.
take? We're good.
How do I... Yeah, just one take Drake out here like TBH. ASMR. Should I take off? No, I'm not going to take
See?
the pop filter off. Let's just do that.
No,
So-
no, you're good.
Thanks, guys, again for popping in. So tonight on the topic, as you could probably see, we were talking about the global effects of anime, really in more of a broader sense in regards to how the market is influenced with different Japanese shows. And so we've seen over the years how the platform itself has changed. Traditionally, it used to show up on television, late night programming, day programming, what have you. And so technology has kind of outpaced the broadcasting part of that, and we're now starting to see little pop-ups here and there of the kind of web-based streaming, as well as the... we'll get back to that in just a second, but really that's what we're talking about tonight. We got a couple of different things to look through, and I can turn down everybody else to kind of level out the levels. That's the thing about doing this live, man. It ain't gonna be perfect.
You gotta make it work, brother.
That's right.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Sonny. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at. So, I mean, as far as what my esteemed guests know about, so what do you guys know, like, in the broad sense, as far as how anime is distributed?
I like Crunchyroll.
I like Crunchyroll, okay. Before we jump into that, we gotta give some love to our boy, to your head. Thanks for the fatty raid, my friend. We love it, bro.
Raid hype.
Shiv Nation here to represent.
You're gonna need some alerts.
Yeah, I do need some alerts. I understand that. I'm not affiliate yet, so none of my shit is properly set up.
Oh, this guy's not affiliate yet? Okay, that
Nah.
needs to change. What are you missing?
We got fixed.
What am I missing? Well, a lack of
Yeah.
streaming content. That's really what we're looking at.
Okay, I can see that as a complication. That's a hurdle.
Yo, you like this setup? Thanks, to. I love it, bro. I love you. So, thanks, really. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to jump into the topic since we got a couple of people sitting with us tonight. So, back to the question at hand, we're mainly talking about the distribution of anime as a whole and how that's affecting the market nowadays. What do you guys know, like, generally, as far as how anime is distributed to the world?
Zero, you want to start or me?
Maybe. Well, I don't know. I'm more of a probably the casual consumer. You know. So if you have a better angle to start from, maybe you. You know.
Well, to start it up, Toonami was the GOAT, of course.
True.
From what I know, there were a lot of channels that used to look at the Japanese market and would very slowly work their way into hosting stuff. Because you ever look back at where Cowboy Bebop got started, apparently it didn't start on Adult Swim and Toonami and stuff like that. It started on another channel. I remember the name to save my life, but there were just a lot of the older stuff. Like if you ever also like English dubs and stuff like that, they started somewhere else. Yeah, so I know a
My
little
first
thing or
start was
two.
Toonami.
Yeah, true. I think a large part of our generation started with Toonami. Now you start talking to people like in their later 30s, mid 40s, and you ask them about where they started watching anime. It's a completely different story. So people would catch it on, the disc boxes, or you'd have to like buy it off of some crazy third-party website. That's truly where we've grown as far as the distribution of services worldwide. And that's mainly what we're talking about tonight, just how that's changed and how that has rapidly affected the market. So kind of bringing that all full circle, there's not a whole lot of Western and specifically American publications for anime. We do see a lot of licensing groups such as, like Sentai Filmworks. We do see a lot from Aniplex. Those have been around for a long time. And they mainly deal with movies here and there. But one of the biggest things that we're missing and we're lacking is, we really truly don't have an animation studio in the West that's producing our own stuff. You know what I mean? And you got a couple of companies here and there, and they're jumping in like Netflix, Funimation. A few of those groups are starting to pick up and make their own. Crunchyroll, even this year, just dropped some Crunchyroll originals. But I mean, still, those studios, I mean, they're outsourcing. Like, let's see, Tower of God and God of High School. Those are both Studio Mappa, located in Tokyo. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, just a general question on that. Like, how do you guys feel about these Western companies that are kind of like they're starting to jump into that feed where, hey, we want to produce or we want to license, but we also want to create our own stuff, homegrown. Like, how do we feel about that in general?
Do you want to start it up, Zero, or do you want me to go again?
So what comes to mind is like the only homebrewed like quote unquote anime that I even credit is like probably Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was like a Nickelodeon, right?
Yeah.
And yet like I think that is the closest thing to homebrewed anime we've ever gotten.
Yeah. Okay.
And but for me, I guess it's just like there's a huge level of cultural influence that comes overseas, right? Like that started it all, and it's emulating at the end of the day. Like no matter what we do, we're emulating a cultural like foundation, and that's cool. But I think maybe there's just a level of I don't want to say fear, but just an overwhelming kind of jump into this chasm of culture that I think there's just artists out there or just studios out there are afraid to kind of dabble in. They don't want to take those risks, or it just won't be accepted as much. Like that's what comes to mind. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but maybe it's just keeping people really reserved from just going, screw it, we're just gonna make our own.
Right.
No, I respect that. I mean, it's the same like in
mind?
the card industry as well. When you start thinking of like American muscle versus like Eastern or like Central Europe muscle, there's a lot of competition there, but you also don't want to step on any toes because the respect is already there.
Right. And then like you get weird like mashups maybe. Like I guess like again the thing that comes to mind is fucking Jaden Smith's Neo Yokio, which is like super weeb, but very American done, like and I don't even know if it's even worth like I didn't even watch it, but like that's what comes to mind. And
right, and see, that was Production IG and Studio Dean, so still two Japanese studios, but it was,
really?
it's still held up by Netflix. So, we're still kind of seeing a blend of American Western companies that are licensing and producing these shows. They're pouring money into it, especially Netflix, and we'll talk more about that later. But they're still reaching out and outsourcing those jobs to animation studios in the East. You know what I mean? So Avatar: The Last Airbender is a great example of homegrown anime that was built ground up from the West. The creator, or the director rather, creative director of Avatar: The Last Airbender has worked on numerous other things that were pretty successful. Most notably, Mandalorian, as well as the Star Wars Clone Wars. So, seriously. So, no, I get that perspective, Sean. What about you, Tyree? I know you had something to say on that.
The first bit of that I actually remember is Teen Titans.
Teen Titans.
They were, if you ever look at the show in a visual standpoint, it may influence. Like you see all the faces, all the stuff that happened back when anime was still getting its stride in the West, and like. Other thing that I remember the entire Maguzi block that with Kolyoko and stuff like that.
Right.
Like that was still also pretty much home brewed. But that one you could argue, believe it was French or Canadians that made that. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. I don't do my research.
No, I'm not quoting you, bro. I'm gonna let you slide for today.
Yeah, but. Remember a lot of these just like during the time before I knew what anime was, that was what I thought it was. This weird looking but fascinating looking visual. So that's just what I get from it.
Okay.
I guess in terms of I thought was homebrewed was Cannon Busters.
Yeah, Cannon Busters. Love that one. I think you recommended that one to me. It was either you or Chris. I can't remember.
I believe it was both of us, and didn't finish it either. But I didn't finish it because I was busy at the time.
Yeah, but that's another homebrew, Cannon Busters. But it's kind of in a similar situation as Neo Yokio, where Netflix is really trying to license and promote shows within their own company, calling them Netflix originals, but these studios are not Netflix studios. So I guess what we can draw from this is that we definitely have viewership here in the West, and we have companies that are ready and willing to invest in anime here, but there's no grassroots organization or any sort of ground for these studios to stand on, or rather these publishers and licensors to stand on, because there's no studios outside of maybe Disney and Pixar, which are one and the same. So I guess what we're really looking at here, and we've got a couple of stats to go through with this, but we actually spent some time and pulled some stuff. Before we jump into that, Climbing Chef, my boy, thank you so much for the follow. We appreciate you, bro. Shout out that man.
Shout him out for the Georgia peach in the chat.
True, yeah, that thing was looking fat. It's kind of in a precarious position, sitting under Monkey D. Luffy, but we're not going to talk about that. So, but I mean, as far as killing me, Juggernaut, thank you for the follow, my man. Thanks everybody for showing up. We love y'all.
Let's get this guy to affiliate.
I know, right? I'm trying, bro. So, as far as stats that we're looking at here, I mean, we pulled some of the trends, and these are actually from the... What is it? It's the Japanese Anime Industry Report for the year 2019. I would have pulled this year, but obviously we're still in it, so I can't pull that. Yeah. So mainly what this, and you guys are welcome to look this up if you want. I doubt any of you will, so I'm going to sit here and go through it for you. But really, this is looking at trends in the animation market for Japan, as far as where they're pulling the majority of their funds and where the demographics are. So, and demographics in the most broadest sense is breaking down the population of which you're pulling your records from. So, in a broad sense, let's see, the year 2018, the overall market trend they were looking at, they were growth of, it was about 2%, and the total profit that they had was 2,181 billion yen. Okay, so that, I'm not sure, you guys can throw that through a calculator if you want, how much USD that is. Quite a bit, I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So, but they break it down even more as far as how much that is. So again, that number, 2,181 billion yen. Okay, of those numbers, and this chart breaks it down into, TV income, movies, video revenue, internet distribution, merchandising, music, overseas, pachinkos, which are like slot machines, live entertainment such as like cafes, event, exhibition. Now these numbers are definitely going to be more skewed last year than they were in like forward years this year with COVID and everything like that demonetized. So the
YouTube. Don't worry about it. You're good here.
Yeah, the striking thing that we're looking at here is of this 2,000 billion yen, 50% of it, in fact, 1,009 billion yen, comes from overseas. Overseas specifically would include the Western Hemisphere. And so, when they're looking at this is coming from like movie, TVs, videograms, game releases, anything like that. So when shows and movies have premieres in our markets, either through streaming content that people pay for, or through like actual movie releases, like I'll give you some great examples. The most recent My Hero movie, Heroes Rising, that came out, and that was an absolute crazy reaction in the blockbuster. So let's see, what's another good one? Promare from Trigger, that released back in 2019. You've got Makoto Shinkai's most recent work, Weathering with You or Tenki no Ko in Japan. All of these have Western releases, and although they do pretty well for themselves in Japan, holistically speaking, it's bringing in about 50% of the revenue in the West. So what that tells us...
Forget about
oh, good.
Dragon Ball,
oh, no, true. Dragon Ball.
Broly just dropped that.
Yeah, right. The whole... it still blows my mind how they treated the tournament of... The tournament with Goku and Jiren like a pay-per-view fight. And like there was like projector screens around the world, newspaper articles, like it was like the craziest worldly event for a single episode of an anime.
is insane. But it just further goes to show you that the support outside of Japan is staggering compared to like homegrown support. And so, if we want to compare that to we'll just take the overseas market in terms of movies here. We can compare that to the movie records here in Japan. 500 billion yen. That's how much the revenue was compared to 1,000 yen or 1,000 billion yen. So double of that was earned in the Western Hemisphere. So now that, there's a few different things that could be, in play with that. Obviously, bigger population. This is not just including the United States. This is including a number of other countries. It's kind of skewed comparing that to Japan, to the West, but at the same time, these companies initially were expecting the majority of their revenue to come from homegrown box offices, from DVD sets releasing, from music being released, merchandise homegrown. All of that leads back to their stores. You know what I mean? So that's the big deal that we're looking at here. So for the West to blow them out double in terms of like how the numbers are looking here, it's pretty insane. So your thoughts on that, guys? Yeah, feel free to pull it up. I know I gave you guys an actual booklet to look at. So
I'm looking at it. It's just didn't really account for how I felt about it.
Yeah.
How, to say to how could, I mean the how could be a lot of reasons. I mean you're talking about, you know, in a broad sense, the, you know, why do we consume entertainment in the first place, to why we have so much disposable income to support that consumption of entertainment, and over in this portion of the world. um, you know, I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but you know, we like to consume media and entertainment more than we invest our money into other things. Whereas I guess on their side of the world, I know that they kind of there's less of an imbalance there, I would say. There's a lot of focus on uh, the production, and just quality of life, and you know, money is there's invested into quality of life over there. And I think we're a little spoiled over on this end, but
No, definitely.
we do.
Yeah.
um, you know, and then it also, you know, would that change if we were producing that kind of entertainment over here? Like, would it balance out a little bit more where they'd be, you know, would they be consuming our entertainment like we consume theirs? Um, you know, so maybe because they're making so much of it, they're just like, you know what, we don't really. It's, we're not our own audience, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's true. But I mean, think of it this way: if you look at how, you know, I'm just going to take Disney because that's really the biggest example that we have here in the Western Hemisphere. If you take their releases, such as like Avengers Endgame, or like Moana, or Frozen 2, or anything like that, Frozen 2 had one of the biggest box office releases in history. It did really well in the West. It did okay in Japan. Avengers did really well. So, I mean, I would say, to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, do they feed off of our content? I would say yes, they would. And the reason why it doesn't really do well is just like you were saying, it's a cultural thing. The Japanese don't really blow their money. They do enjoy the creative aspect of it, which is why they have so many different studios on it. But at the same time, like, that's not really how anime was intended to be, you know, taken.
Yeah.
Previously, it never was meant to be a worldwide thing. Otherwise, they would have made it in other languages. You know, you have these Western countries that are dubbing their own stuff at this point, and they're buying into the stock to get their licensing, which is what a lot of this revenue is coming into.
Yeah. It's also like you think it's a population thing as well?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, you can look at it in a limited sense. There's a graph right under it that's taking population into account. And even so, the numbers are staggering. Like, you know, 60 billion yen versus 42 billion yen, when you're just taking that down to sheer number, comparing that on a percentage base, it's still 30% more. Like, it's a crazy amount of revenue that they're seeing from the West Coast, and from overseas in general. Those Californians and their anime bunch of weebs.
Yeah. Losers.
I'm saying that I just got back from California, and I got to tell you, it's its own country, dude. I don't know if I would ever go back to live there. Nice climate, not a lot of nice people, and that's me saying that from the South.
Yeah.
You think, you know, I'd like to think that, you know, it just might be a bad time in the world for, you know, to be visiting other places. I think everybody's kind of in a bad way. You know, I've heard good things about the West Coast, you know, so maybe it was just a fluke experience. You know, you give it a second chance.
I would say that. But there certainly weren't a lot of people social distancing or having masks. Oof. Or they definitely were enjoying some smoke signals. Yeah, so they were having a good time. I'm not going to blame them. We have a question in the chat here. Where do you put Vegeta after you kill him? Where do you put him, Jug? In the freezer! I'm so dead.
This guy.
Oh.
She's like, remember when you messaged me today? You feel like you said something wrong? Jesus.
I'm so done. So yeah, getting back on topic here. I mean, we do see the disparity as far as where the money is coming in, specifically from the West Coast, and a lot of that you would think, where does this traction come from? And again, these are older numbers from like 2018, 2019, 2017, all of those years previous. A lot of this traction is coming from the licensing and the streaming services that we're seeing. We're seeing a downfall in cable, which you can see on the chart. I wish I would show you the chart, but I don't want to get like any copyright infringement. So, but basically, if this chart goes from 2002 to 2018, and the TV, which is mainly referring to like, the domestic cable companies that are showing anime live. I mean, it's been pretty stagnant. It's staying around, 100 million yen per year. I mean, that is not growing at all. And you kind of see it dip between 2007 and 2012. And more recent years, it's above that 100 million yen margin. But, I mean, again, you're not seeing nearly the growth that you're seeing for overseas, as well as, different streaming services and different music. Like, even music has had a huge... Juggernaut wants to do one more joke. We're going to put a pause on that, my friend. Let me finish the point. Because I don't know. I can't ban and also talk numbers at the same time.
Right.
So, but no, I mean, so we have our two big conglomerates here that we're seeing on the West Coast, and mainly Funimation and Crunchyroll, that are kind of on the rise. And this graph kind of shows a massive increase between 2015 and 2018. They go from 583 billion yen per year to 1,009 billion yen per year, which that number, I looked it up, translates to about $9.3 billion USD. So it's a pretty good amount. It's not Disney numbers, but I mean, for somebody that's used to making like a third of that, it's an insane amount of money. So, but we are seeing the licensing and the sort of production get stronger with Funimation and Crunchyroll. And the main reason that we've seen that is that these companies have decided to go independent. And initially they were working with each other back in 2017. They ended up sharing their libraries and their licensing. And I kind of figured off of that, like, we would be seeing more of what we wanted. Like, I wanted to see Western animation companies start to spring up and say, hey, we're going to make our own stuff. And I mean, clearly there's the talent. I mean, how can you have a company like Disney, which is world renowned as one of the best animation studios out there, but not have, a growing market here in the West, but there's just no studios behind it. You know what I mean? It's very interesting to see.
It's also like I had a point for a second. I'm glad I didn't cut it out. Like with things, like what Funimation and Crunchyroll did, they like a lot of people, like, they just wanted the simuldubs. I don't think they were hoping for the American studios to start showing up or anything like that. I think they were thinking too small, if that's a good way to put it. Because combined, they would have probably, they probably would have tore the whole house down. They probably would have just ran the whole anime market, because when you stop to think about it, like you said, cable is dying. Like, people aren't going to watch Toonami as much as they used to. All this different stuff. So, like, but like, then you can probably tell who probably broke that relationship off too. Like Funimation, they just haven't been on point with what they need to do either. So I think it's just a matter of people need to figure out how to make that money work. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I agree completely. Like, it's having such huge revenue. I mean, Netflix being one of the largest streaming services in the world, with the exception of Disney Plus with their launch. But I mean, they're still holding strong, and now they're starting to invest even more money into the animation background of it. So I think in due time we will start to see these studios pop up, and you do have some of the smaller studios like Rooster Teeth. I mean, they're making Ruby. Is that really considered an anime? A lot of people will say yes. I mean,
yeah, I'd say now.
Yeah.
Maybe not when it started.
Yeah, certainly not when
I
it
mean-
started. It felt like a webtoon.
I mean, it has a whole Japanese dub, so I'll give it that.
Yeah, that's very true. So, and it's surprisingly very popular in Japan, but I mean that's neither here nor there. I don't think it'll be the case that the West will just completely blow the East out of the water in terms of like production value or revenue or anything like that. But what I do hope to see in the future is that we'll have a bit more diversity in it. Because unfortunately, you know, with how much is coming out, and I think Gigu did a whole video on this, but with how much is coming out, the anime like industry itself is becoming very stagnant. We're starting to see just a few really good shows here and there, whereas previously, like, anything that was released before 2010 was considered a classic because it was literally like 50 anime per year, and now we probably see 50 anime per season. So certainly not during everything that's going on, but I mean 2019 there was like over 300 shows that were released and licensed in Crunchyroll and Funimation together. And I mean that's not even counting, you know, pirating websites, you know what I mean?
Not gonna bring them up though.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a crazy amount of content that we're looking at. I'm not saying that the West needs to do better in anything, but I do think that with how staggering these numbers are, it would be in our best interest to capitalize on that.
One of the things that I think are going to change the potential for production going forward, you have to consider the era we're in, the post-pandemic era, where now some of these smaller studios have actually closed their doors because of this pandemic. And you know, outside of say big companies like Netflix who can afford to, you know, pay people remotely and find new methods for this kind of production, you know, you're losing out on the potential of smaller studios starting up. You know, for anywhere from 6 months to potentially 2 years. So we may see a significant like gap in just overall production. Like even the stuff that has their doors open, things are going on hiatus. You know, things are being delayed, even with big budgets behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes to wonder if, you know, if the West, if we can keep up, or if we can even play those angles outside of Netflix. Like Netflix may be the only option to make any kind of homebrew product.
That's very true. It's a point that I didn't really consider, but I mean that is definitely a valid point that we'll have to look at now, considering, you know, the U.S. jumping into its second wave, and it's massive. It seems to, you know, I mean, it's on track to beat the first wave in terms of just overall cases. But this is certainly not a podcast about the pandemic, but you can't help but talk about it when you're discussing the market and how it's affected by consumerism. So it's definitely a good point, Zero. Thanks for sharing that, man.
I mean, it also probably got more people into anime over that time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You know, a lot of people were able to catch up. You
The
know,
couch warriors.
Right.
You know, so you know, this is definitely. I mean, like, you know, politics aside, right? Because like it's really just, you know, this, you know, there's going to be a chart coming out that's going to talk about all this kind of the consumption of this content. You know, there's, you know, I'd like to see what those numbers were for this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when those numbers are available, because right, you know, I know that the stock market saw growth in what they're called the stay-at-home stocks like Netflix. I'm sure Crunchyroll was doing I definitely was watching Crunchyroll. I was watching VRV, you know, and I'm sure plenty of people were happy to still have Toonami out there. But I mean, there's a reason why Toonami is still on the air. Let's not, as I don't watch cable anymore, but I saw when Toonami tried to get turned off, and the entire internet petitioned to get them back on the air. So,
Yeah.
for one thing's for sure, there's a lot of people still watching Toonami just to get that fix.
I agree. Does Toonami have their own app? That's a good Google question.
It
That's
do
a good Google
not.
question.
Do
I don't
not.
think they do either.
However,
Adult Swim does. Yeah. Wow. Jinx.
I know they Adult Swim has a Paranoid Agent on, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It's not like it avoids anime or anything like that. It's just Toonami doesn't have its own thing.
Right. Well, I mean, that could be something that, because, I mean, are they even owned by Cartoon Network anymore?
They're pretty much like mutual at this point.
Mutual. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's something
I think
technically
Cartoon Network owns the property of Toonami. But they're just kind of seen as one entity. So I think it's like Cartoon Network, Toonami, and Adult Swim are like they are but one entity. It's still Cartoon Network. It's just a different mask that they wear.
Agreed. Yeah, so I mean, I think if they did jump into the streaming aspect of it, I mean, they already have an Adult Swim app, they have a Cartoon Network app. Toonami needs their own shit. Like, let's be real. And I wouldn't say, because they don't really do dubs, but they do premieres. That's the thing. Like, it was a big deal when I went to MomoCon back in 2017, and Christopher Sapat was there with the producer of Cartoon Network, as well as the head director of Toonami, and he gets up on stage and he's like, "Hey guys, you remember that show that released like 10 years ago, Fully Cooley? Yeah, we're releasing 2 more iterations of it, but the only way you're going to be able to watch it is on Toonami." Everybody was like, "Yo, what?" You know what I mean? Like, they definitely have that clout. And it was big. Like, they premiered the first episode of both Fully Cooley Progressive and Fully Cooley Alternative at MomoCon. So if you weren't there for that, you're going to have to tune in to Toonami the very next day to watch it. That's just how it was. Crunchyroll didn't get it till like 8-9 months later. You couldn't pirate it. I mean, you could, but it was going to be terrible quality, you know what I mean? So they definitely have a big grasp as far as the Western reach is concerned. But they also partnered with the animation studio from the East just to get the license for it. And the band that did the soundtrack for Fully Cooley returned. They even went to him, and it's like 10-15 years later, they're like, "Hey, we're making more Fully Cooley." They're like, "Did you find anybody to do the OST?" "No, we're asking you." "Sweet, let's do it." Like, it just kind of all fell into place. It's really cool. I urge you guys, if you're Fully Cooley fans, to check it out. They have a documentary on YouTube about it. It is definitely fun and interesting to kind of see like how everybody was just kind of hoping that more Fully Cooley was made, because as awesome of a concept of a show it was, there was only 6 episodes to release a bunch of years ago. So they made another 12. So yeah.
I didn't realize they made a whole season's worth.
Yeah, they made 2 seasons, alternative and progressive.
So those are also on the Adult Swim app. Remember that?
True. Yep, because Toonami, they premiered on Toonami, dub and sub. It was the first time, really, that we saw a return of a show, but the dub was primarily the first release. So, and Toonami had a big play in that.
That's it. They're the goats.
I know. So, whoever brought up Toonami, I don't know if it was Zero or Tydynamite, but yo, way to come in clutch. We love it. So I guess to kind of wrap everything up, we definitely have the clout here in the West as far as like licensing and, you know, what's the other term, like streaming services that we have. There's a few things I would love to see in the future, but because of everything going on, we may not see them as soon as I would like to. I certainly don't think it'll reshape the industry as a whole, but I do think that we'll start to see a bit more diversity. You start getting that Western touch and things, as well as a different art style, and you just end up evolving the medium again. And I already love anime as much as the next guy, but I mean, I would love to be able to like possibly do storyboarding or because I have an interest in it myself. I do writing. I'd love to be able to do that kind of stuff here without having to go to Japan.
I mean, I'd still love to go to Japan.
No, I'll visit, but I don't want to move to Japan.
I don't know. I'm dabbled with the idea. No.
No, you can
Maybe I'm
keep
just
that.
tired of the States. I don't know.
It's crazy,
Start
man.
on that bullshit right now.
No, I agree.
Yeah, well,
I'm with you, Ty.
you know what it is? I love the food too much. That's what it is. I want to just have the ability to eat Japanese comfort food all the time.
No.
I would live in
Get you a
Japan
wife that cooks you
specifically for that.
Japanese comfort food.
Yo, my wife made me curry for lunch, and she knows how to make chicken katsudon. Like I swear to God, you wouldn't tell was fucking made out of our kitchen. It tastes like fucking straight out of the like legit. I yeah. So I got lucky. So I get
That's
my
true.
comfort meal.
Be
Yeah.
nice, man.
Still.
Be nice.
Yo. Well, that's pretty much all the points I wanted to hit, guys. Do we have any comments? Anything from the peanut gallery? We got a bunch of people sitting here. Do I have any new faces? Any old faces?
I want to know what Jugs.
Yeah, Jug.
bad pun
Say your
was.
joke now, dog.
Yeah,
You can
hit us
say
with
your
that joke, man.
I wonder if he was still waiting this whole time.
He's
No.
like, he's already got it queued up, just needs to hit enter. He's like, all right. What do you call a bee with no wings? And we're all just like, what?
Right.
And he's like, ee.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
bad,
It
actually.
was
That
rough.
was terrible.
not happy about that. I'm not happy that I was a part of it. Thank you. I'm
Listen.
not-
You heard it here first. Well, y'all have been great, honestly. Thanks for joining me in this.
Anytime, bro.
I love it. Yeah, man. I wasn't expecting to. You kind of just hit me with the, hey, you want to do this thing? And I'm like, yeah. Especially because like I was otherwise in a funk. So you kind of helped cheer me up today. I appreciate it because I hate not usually streaming on my Taco Tuesday. And
That's true.
so it's the next best thing. I still got to stream, and at least my connection was good enough to hold the Discord call.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that. We're getting big storms out here, so. Well, thanks for everybody. Yeah, we are, man. Yeah, and again, thank y'all for pulling through, Tyree. I know we've been talking about this for like a week at this point. Just didn't know when it was going to go down.
I appreciate you getting me on some content because I've been slacking on my job, man.
It's all good, bro. All right, y'all.
So what now? You're not just gonna end the stream, right? I think I taught you better than that.
Nah, so we're going to find somebody to raid. That's what we're going to do.